Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of, I don't know, whatever. Apparently, when I called this show Ancient of Days, Ancient of Days is from a verse in the book of Daniel. The Ancient of Days was sitting on his throne when the one like the Son of Man approached on the clouds, but no. They think they own the phrase. Tough. It's Ancient of Days, coming to you live from beautiful downtown Crestline in the San Bernardino Mountains of Southern California's Inland Empire. We are buried in snow. It's 20 degrees Fahrenheit, which is well below 0 centigrade. And I haven't had my breakfast yet, so I heated up some cinnamon rolls. So excuse me while I take a bite of them here and there and cover up the camera while I chew. Okay. Now, let's see. Last time, 2 weeks ago, because I had a schedule kerfuffle last week, and when I did get back home, I had so much to do that I couldn't find the time to come on live. So 2 weeks ago, we looked at Psalm 82 and Deuteronomy 32 with a little side trip to Psalm 89. It's about the sons of God who apparently ruled all the Gentile nations after the Tower of Babel. Now, I have not read Genesis 11, so we're getting into this together for the first time, although maybe some of you have read it. Anyway, it's about the Tower of Babel. After the flood, there were more and more people. Well, God told them to scatter, fill the earth. Instead, they all sat down and got together and started making bricks and building a city and building a temple and a ziggurat, a tower. God said, that isn't what I told you to do. So the link to Genesis 11 in the ESV, English Standard Version, is in the chat room. Let's see. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. What does that mean, burn them thoroughly? Well, clay bricks can be dried in the sun, but that doesn't make for a very strong brick. My lighter is out of fluid. The horror. Tora, where'd you put my purse? I know I have a spare. Bad cat. You see, She thinks she wants O-U-T, and I can't say the word because she knows the word. Ah, my spare. I have everything but money in my purse. That's better. In order to make a really strong brick, you fire it in a kiln. It's Kiln, but I've been corrected billions of times. They say it's you don't pronounce the N on the end. Anyway, you fire it up as hot as you possibly can to make the brick strong by baking out all the water and cooking the clay and sand. It's usually clay and sand. It could be clay and straw, like adobe, or like what the Hebrews made in the Israelites made in Egypt. How can we make bricks without straw? Well, the Egyptians said, go get your own straw. Anyway, so they burned the bricks thoroughly, in other words, made them very strong in a hot oven. And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Bitumen is kind of like tar. In England, though, tar is called asphalt. It's the liquid, gooey, black stuff that comes out of an oil well, all thick and unrefined. In America, asphalt is tar plus gravel. In England, I think they call it pavement. Well, anyway, for mortar. Verse 4 Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. Whoa! They aren't praising God, they're praising themselves. Look how great we are. We can make bricks and build a city. Now, if you're in a city, and I don't mean like Fontana or Orange or even Napa or Sonoma, that doesn't count. Those are okay to live in. But places like New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, Detroit, they are toxic environments. They're all paved over. People live in little boxes without so much as a patch of garden. Those are bad. And this is what they were building in Babylon. Well, it wasn't called Babylon yet, but it would be. Okay, verse 4 again. Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. And let us make a name for ourselves to see the city and the tower. Oh, I skipped a line, sorry. And let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. Well, that's what God told them to do. Get yourself all over the earth. They're disobeying. They don't want to do what they were told. Very human trait, by the way. Anyone who has had children knows obedience is not really natural to humans. Now, my son would usually do what I said if I explained why. But when he disagreed, forget it. And he's a good man. It's okay. Sometimes he convinced me. Anyway, verse 5. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of man had built. That's the children of Adam. Adam means humanity. Verse 6. And the Lord said, behold, they are one people, and they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do, and nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. These rebellious people are going to do whatever they want. I got to have another bite of the cinnamon roll. I don't usually eat breakfast, but I'm getting old and things are changing, so let me get a bite of cinnamon roll and chew it up and wash it down with coffee. Mmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. This isn't just that people are going to do great things. This is that people are going to do things they were told not to, things they shouldn't do, and things that are bad for them. Now, why is the tower a bad thing? Well, it's part of a temple complex where they invite God to come down and meet with them. And that isn't what God had in mind. Now, later, like in the time of Solomon, God tells Solomon to build a house for him, a temple. But God isn't there all the time. He comes down once a year, and the high priest who has to go in and meet with God is terrified. He could die. And the other priests tie a rope to one of his ankles because if he does die in the of Holies, they aren't going in there to get him. They'll use the rope to drag him out because they're frightened. People die in there. Okay, verse 5. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of man had built. And the Lord said, behold, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do will now be possible for them. Why? Why will it be impossible? Surely not because they made a tower. We have lots of brick buildings, including towers. No, it's because they're all one people with one language. Verse 7. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language so that they may not understand one another's speech. Who's God talking to? Let us go down? Is he using the royal we, which is so fashionable among kings and queens? Victoria Regina was, Queen Victoria was famous for saying, we are not amused. I don't know whether she ever actually said it, but all the imitations of Queen Victoria say that in comedy skits, in fiction, like Doctor Who. Well, anyway. Or is God talking to someone? Now, he doesn't need to talk to the Trinity. They're all God and they already know what he's thinking and what he's doing because they are him or he, if you want correct Queen's English. But we're just talking, so I'll say him because it's more conversational. And I'm a recovering English teacher. Emphasis on recovering. Well, God's talking to somebody, and he isn't talking to humans. Well, we'll come back to that. Verse 7. Come, let us go down, and there There, confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. So apparently, he didn't just confuse their speech, he moved them far away, all over the world, or at least the world that the writers of the scriptures knew. Um, Verse 8. So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore its name was called El, or we say Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord dispersed them over the face of all the earth. Now, we talk about babbling, uttering nonsense, speech that no one can understand. But the literal meaning of El is the gate of God. So maybe it's really because it was a gate where God came down. Maybe it's a pun. The authors of the scriptures, especially in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew, loved puns. They used a lot of what you might call double entendre. It's puns, plays on words. And then in verse 10, it goes down. These are the generations of Shem, and on and on. And we get to verse 26 when Terah, Terah, had lived 70 years. He fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Abram will become, or Avram will become, Abraham. And then we have Terah's descendants. Now Abraham's brother Haran fathered Lot, and Haran died in the presence of his father, in the land of his kindred, in Ur of the Chaldeans. Ur is like probably northern Babylon, maybe southern Babylon. Anyway, it's near to Babel. Terah, they say, made little statues, little religious trinkets. That's how he made his living. Now, God told Haran to get Abram out of Ur and go to the land of Canaan. But instead, they settled in a place called Haran, same name as the son of Terah who had died in Ur. The cats are demanding treats again. So we have Abram married to Sarah, and we have Lot, the son of Haran. This is verse 31. And they left Ur of the Chaldees to go into Canaan, but they settled in Haran, which is basically in Turkey. And then we get to Genesis 12. Sorry. Another bite of cinnamon roll and some treats for the mendacious cats. I think that means greedy. I can't swear to it. We use a lot of words thinking that we know what they mean, but do we? All right, Genesis 12. I just used a little arrow on the site, but I'll put the link in. Well, good morning, Sleepy Dave and Tim and Sandra. Let's see. Good morning, everyone. You missed the Tower of Babel. Now we're on Genesis 12, the call of Abraham. He was Avram. So there they are, settled in Turkey. Abraham's father didn't do what God said. He didn't go to the land of Canaan. Humans tend to be quite disobedient. Now, I've got to have another bite of my cinnamon roll. More treats, so hang on. What are you guys doing? Vultures. Little furry vultures. That's what you cats are. Here, Tora. Here, sweetie. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I am getting old. I eat breakfast now. Never did before. Hmm. I would go to a place like Denny's at midnight or 1 a.m. and have a pancake breakfast, but that is sort of a after dinner or supper. Hmm. All right. Genesis 12. Oh, hi, Peter. Didn't see you before. Okay. So, Tower of Babel is all over. Languages are confused. Abraham's father didn't go all the way to Canaan like God told him. He stopped over in Turkey and stayed there. Well, then Terah died, so now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Well, why do they need to be blessed? Well, let's see, back in chapter 11, in the Tower of Babel incident, God not only confused languages, but also scattered them over the earth. He must have done more than that, and we'll get to that. Verse 4. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abram took Sarah his wife. It's actually Sarai. She becomes Sarah later when they're both renamed by God. And Abram took Sarah his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people that they had acquired in Haran. And they set out to go to the land of Canaan. The people they had acquired, well, I guess they had like servants and slaves and um, loyal soldiers and guards, and whatever. So it wasn't just Abraham and Sarah walking through the desert. They had a retinue. And slaves in those days were not what you think. They were usually indentured servants who owed a debt, and after a set number of years, usually 7 years, they were free, but many of them chose to stay in service. As servants, it was a good job, as long as you had a master who treated you well. Okay, let's see. When they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the place at Shechem, the oak of Moreh. I don't know where that is, but there's apparently a footnote. Terebinth? I don't know. I have no clue where that is. But you see, at that time, the Canaanites were in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he didn't like go around Canaan, he passed through it. He traveled through Canaan to, so it might be an oak tree, it might be a terebinth tree, and that's important in other places in the Bible, but we don't need to worry about it. Anyway, the Lord says, "To your offspring I will give this land." Not to Abram, but to his offspring. Well, he's childless, he's 75. His wife Sarah is old. He doesn't quite believe God about offspring. He figures his heir is either his nephew Lot or a servant in his house. Okay, so Abram that is, he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. So he saw God. Well, God must have been in some form that wouldn't kill you if you looked at him. Remember, he wanted to see God, and God said, "You can't see me face to face, you'll die." So he showed him his hinder parts. Okay, so he builds an altar. Verse 8, from there he moved to the hill country on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and that's Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed on, still going toward the Negev. That's that desert in Israel. Well, anyway, then he goes to Egypt, and we don't need to worry about that right now. Later. Not today. We want to go to Deuteronomy 32, because why do these nations need to be blessed or cursed? Day goes fast, huh? Okay, Sleepy Day. Cast in Racing League. He has these cool toy cars. Matchbox, I guess, and other brands. Okay. Well, God scattered. Now, according to Dr. Michael Heiser, the word scattered in Genesis 11, where God scattered the people, dispersed them all over the earth after the Tower of Babel incident. According to Dr. Michael Heiser, that's the same word in Deuteronomy 32, which is dispersed or divided. We're going to we'll skip a bit, but basically it's a prophet or a priest or a scribe saying, "You aren't listening to God. He's perfect and faithful, and you're corrupt and foolish." And the second half of verse 6, is he, that's God, is not he your father who created you and who made you and established you? And then verse 8, well, let's see, let's start with 7. This is where they get the story. "Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will show you, your elders, and they will tell you." Why? Well, this was written apparently after the Exodus. The calling of Abraham was many generations earlier, but there were old people, elders who could tell the stories. So listen to them. And here we get the word divided, which is the same word when God dispersed the people in Genesis 11. Verse 8, "When the Most High," we know that's God, gave to the nations their inheritance. When he divided mankind, he fixed the borders of the people according to the number of the sons of God. But the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob his allotted heritage. Now, many translations say the number of the sons of Israel. But at the Tower of Babel incident, Jacob, Israel, had not been born. His grandfather Abraham had not yet been called by God. And besides, Jacob had 12 sons. And depending on whether you follow the Greek Septuagint or the medieval Masoretic text in Hebrew, there were either 70 nations or 72. They're outlined in chapter 10 of Genesis, and I'm not going through it because I kind of get into a coma when I try to read all the begats and begets. All right, so the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob his allotted heritage. He found him in a desert land and in the howling waste of the wilderness. He encircled him, he cared for him, he kept him as the apple of his eye. Like an eagle that stirs up its nest, that flutters over its young, spreading out its wings, catching them, bearing them on its pinions, the Lord alone guided him. No foreign god was with him. Oh, what foreign god? This is not polytheism. It isn't like there's a whole bunch of gods and God is just one of them. The Most High is the Creator, the Father. These other gods are the sons of God, set to rule over all the Gentile nations. Foreign gods. You might call them false gods or pagan gods, but they aren't God. They aren't anywhere near his level. And I know it's kind of sexist to refer to God in the masculine. God probably isn't masculine or feminine, but when he appears in the form of a man, like the angel of the Lord or Jesus Christ, he's a man, he's masculine, male. It's just that men didn't listen to women in those times. They didn't believe things that women said. Anyway, back to God and Jacob. All kinds of gifts that God gave to Jacob, Israel, probably to him and his descendants. Verse 15, but Jeshurun grew fat and kicked. You grew fat, stout, and sleek. Then he forsook God, who made him, and scoffed at the rock of his salvation. That's kind of weird. First, it's the third person. Jeshurun grew fat and kicked. And then, second person, you grew fat, stout, and sleek. And then back to third person, then he forsook God who made him, and scoffed at the rock of his salvation. To jealousy with strange gods. With abominations they provoked him to anger. All right, we got to look up Jeshurun, but I think I know where this is going. Jeshurun in the Hebrew Bible is a poetic name for Israel, derived from root word meaning upright, just, or straight. It occurs 4 times in the Bible, 3 times in Deuteronomy, and once in Isaiah. It can mean the people of Israel, and it does here. So the descendants of Jacob, Israel, grew fat and stout and sleek. When it's he, the third person, that's Israel, Jacob. When it's you, it's the second person, it's all of his descendants. This is very strange, switching back and forth. But they're kind of saying that all of Jacob's descendants are Jacob. Verse 16, they stirred him to jealousy with strange gods. With abominations they provoked him to anger. Who is provoked? Jacob or God? Don't know. They sacrificed to demons that were no gods, to gods they had never known, to new gods that had come recently, whom your fathers had never dreaded. You were unmindful of the rock that bore you, and you forgot the God who gave you birth. So these sons of God who are the nations were not allotted to Israel. They were not supposed to worship pagan gods. Actually, nobody was supposed to worship them, but the Gentiles were supposed to serve them and obey them, but still worship the one true God the Father. The Lord saw it and spurned them because of the provocation of his sons and his daughters. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end will be, for they are a perverse generation, children in whom is no faithfulness. They have made me jealous with what is no God. They have provoked me to anger with their idols. So I will make them jealous with those who are no people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. Well, this must be referring to the Babylonian exile. The Babylonians are no people because God allotted them to the sons of God. It's like, you're dead to me. In modern English, for a fire is kindled by my anger, and it burns to the depths of Sheol. In other words, hell or the abyss, devours the earth and its increase, and sets on fire the foundations of the mountains. And there's all kinds of curses. He makes sure that even the Babylonians know that it was God who did this. Verse 28, for they are a nation void of counsel, and there is no understanding in them. If they were wise, they would understand this. They would discern their latter end. And verse 32, for their vine comes from the vine of Sodom and from the fields of Gomorrah. You remember what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. Their grapes are poison, their wine is the poison of serpents. Verse 39, see now that I, even I am he, and there is no God beside me. I kill and I make alive, I wound and I heal, and there is none that can deliver out of my hand. For I lift up my hand to heaven and swear, as I live forever, if I sharpen my flashing sword, and my hand takes hold on judgment, I will take vengeance on my adversaries, and will repay those who hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, with the blood of the slain and the captives from the long-haired heads of the enemy. Now this part was actually his vengeance against Babylon. And verse 43 says, rejoice with him, O heavens, bow down to him, all gods. For he avenges the blood of his children and takes vengeance on his adversaries. He repays those who hate him and cleanses his people's land. Now, according to verse 44, Moses said all this, but I guess um, it can't be, because it's about the Babylonian exile, unless it's a prophecy. But it does tell us that the Gentiles were worshiping false gods. This is not a pantheon, it isn't polytheism. It's saying, yes, those pagan gods are real, but don't worship them. They're just of cinnamon roll. Got it. Now, Abraham was a strange choice, the son of a man who made little idols for the pagan churches, pagan temples, and people's homes in Ur, Ur of the Chaldees, a Chaldean pagan. And Abram, being his son, almost certainly worked beside his father, making little pagan idols. And Abram was old, and his wife was old, and God chose them to raise up his own people in the midst of all these pagans who were assigned to lesser gods. I guess God wanted to make it clear that what he was doing was a miracle. And when we think of God, we tend to look for miracles. Miracle literally is something to look at. We look for the big things, the fantastic things, the impossible things, and we forget that God is there in everything, even the littlest things. He sees when you step on a rock. He sees when you plow your fields or plant your garden or go to work or buy groceries or sit down to dinner. He sees everything. And he made everything and makes everything. Anyway, what I wanted to get to on these lesser gods was, of course, the ever present Genesis 6. Uh, People had daughters, and the sons of God said, "Oh, let's marry them and make children." And we have these Nephilim, these giants who are hybrids between sons of God and the daughters of men. I try to avoid calling them angels because even though that's the word we think of, angel just means messenger. People can be messengers. Animals can be angels. Like when driving down Highway 99 late at night in the dark, and suddenly there was an owl in my windshield going, "Ah!" And I went, "Ah!" Took my foot off the gas and waited for the poor owl to fly up over my car and not get smushed on my windshield. Well, there must have been a good reason for me to slow down, whether it was getting a speeding ticket or having an accident, I don't know. But I stayed slower after that. That owl was an angel, a messenger, saying, "Slow down." And my dog was an angel, a messenger, when he would bark before some human got to the door and knocked. He was telling me there's a stranger here. It was usually something harmless, but my dog was being an angel, a messenger. And in a sense, people who preach are angels because they bring the message of God and salvation. Now, I can't argue doctrine. Um, I don't know it that well, but people who preach are angels, they're messengers. But these lesser gods are not just messengers, they come along and say, "We're in charge. Do what we say. Bring us gifts." Now, yes, the Israelites did sacrifice to God, but The priests always got a share of the sacrifice. They needed food, they needed to eat. And of course, that happened in pagan temples. Um, but God made it clear that He did not need our gifts. He got pissed off when the people of the Exodus worshipped a golden calf, but He didn't say, okay, now you bring me some gifts to quell my anger. No, He said, you are going to grind up that golden calf and make a soup and drink it, every one of you. And some of the people involved were put to the sword. So God isn't someone you can appease with your gifts. You sacrifice because you're grateful, not because you want something. When you pray, you're supposed to thank God. Yeah, you can request things. Sure. I wouldn't presume to ask for a new car or $1 million, but I might ask for good health and good friends and good food. There is a difference. Some things you need, other things you just want. Oh, I don't know. The older I get, the more I think I don't have much to give, but I will give what I can, not because I want something in return, but because I'm so grateful for the God who made us. And then I think about these Nephilim, supposedly wiped out in the flood, but there they were after the flood. The Rephaim, for example, a giant clan of hybrids of the sons of God and daughters of women, or daughters of men, excuse me. Um, Now I've heard it said, oh, they wouldn't dare do that again. They'd be so frightened at the consequences. Well, people who say that don't understand the arrogance of evil. But whatever happened, there were these clans that the Israelites believed were not fully human hybrids. Ah, the widow's mite. Thank you, Peter. The widow who gave a teeny tiny, something like a tenth of a penny, gave more than the wealthy man's gold because it was all she had. Anyway, back to these stupid hybrids. You see, and I've been saying this for at least 10 years. We don't have to believe that these hybrids exist. But know this, that the certain members of the wealthy and powerful elite do believe that they are divine, that they are not human, but a separate and superior species. And because of their divine heritage and lineage, they can do whatever they want with the rest of us because we're mere humans. And you're seeing it now. I'm going to recommend a story by Philip K. Dick. If you haven't read it, read it. If you have read it, read it again. I'm typing, so let's see. It's hard to type and talk. It's called Faith of Our Fathers, and it was written by Philip K. Dick. It was a story included in the first volume of Dangerous Visions. Vions. I think we're living in that story where our food and water are drugs and the illegal drugs are the antidote. Well, I wouldn't go quite that far. Uh, I'm not going to buy drugs off the street, that's for sure. But I do believe that we're being brainwashed all the time and probably poisoned with fluoride in the water and GMO foods and such. So we don't see the world the way it really is. Oh, thank you, Peter. I'm just about done for the day. I kind of want to just refer to Psalm 82, in which God is judging the sons of God for being unjust judges of the humans he entrusted to them. We've got like Zeus going after human women all the time, didn't even marry them, just made children with them. His human children included Helen of Troy. She was beautiful, but she was evil. And so was her twin sister, Clytemnestra, who killed her husband by bashing him over the head while he was in the bath. Agamemnon. And Helen, of course, ran off with Paris, a prince of Troy, because she didn't like being queen of Sparta. And that led to a huge war in which many people died horribly. And eventually the city was burned down, and all members of the royal family, including small children, were killed. Because that's what you did. That's why the Russian communists killed the Tsar and all his family. You wipe out the royal family so they can't come back, kick you out, and take back their throne. Well, royalty in particular seem to believe that they are God, part divine, not gods. Uh, so it doesn't matter whether you and I believe all of that, they believe it. And it really strongly affects the way they treat the rest of us because we aren't good enough. I still think of the one school I went to for a little over a year. It was for gifted children. They were trying to make us feel that we were elite and better than other people and blah, blah, blah. They studied our DNA. They looked up our family trees. Maybe that's why I wasn't quite good enough. I didn't know it at the time, but my family had been passing for white for 3 generations. Grandpa, they said, had an awfully big nose for a white man, and his father couldn't pass. He was black. Jeez. They told us children that we were part Cherokee. That was kind of cool. In California, at least, there wasn't a big discrimination or prejudice against Cherokee. But boy, if we had known that we were part black, on the one hand, it would have made our lives miserable. But on the other hand, it would have prevented or at least explained some of the harassment we did suffer. Relatives, close relatives, mostly mom. See, the black ancestor was on dad's side. And it's weird, mom's parents were not prejudiced at all, but mom was. Whew, awful. Well, anyway, read Faith of Our Fathers by Philip K. Dick. I'm sure, I know it's in the first volume of the anthology Dangerous Visions. It was published in the mid 1960s originally, but it's widely available now. And I'm pretty sure that YouTube has an audio version. You'll have to search for it because I don't have a link. Anyway, thank you all for listening. It's still about, let's see, come on, 28 degrees. So it's only a little bit less than 0 centigrade. It was 20 this morning, and actually it was 19. Well, my water pipes did not freeze, but they came close. When I first turned on the water, it came out rusty, and that means there was some ice in the pipe, but not enough to clog it just yet. I forgot to leave the cabinet open when I went to bed, but I did have the faucet dripping. Tonight, I'll do both, leave the cabinet door open and leave the faucet dripping. All right, you guys. Time to get back to what we believe to be our real life. Oh, you evil phone. What we believe to be our real life. I don't know what this phone wants. I barely recognize when it's ringing because someone called. Yeah, yeah. I think that means I got an email, either that or a weather report. Catch you all next time. Probably on a Tuesday around 9 a.m. Pacific, but you never know. Bye.